Hey guys, how you doing? Cameron here for another episode of Industry Insights. I've got an exciting episode for you guys this week. My guest is Maggie from Viva Energy Australia. Maggie, hey, how are you doing?
Hey Cameron, how are you? I'm good.
It's good to hear. So, you're the Technology and Integrity Manager at Viva Australia, based out of the Geelong hub. But you've actually had a rather experienced career to date so far. Could you maybe tell us a little bit more about your career history?
Yeah, so well, maybe you can hear out of my accent that I'm not Australian. I'm actually Dutch from the Netherlands, and yeah, that's where I started my career. I only came to the country 2 years ago.
Okay.
Um, I'm a mechanical engineer in background,
Hmm.
and basically because I didn't really know what to study, and I thought mechanical engineering was pretty general, and yeah, it was pretty general. And then I got an opportunity to work at the refinery as a process engineer, which is typically a job for a chemical engineer.
Yeah.
But that company that I was hired by, they hired both chemical as well as mechanical engineers into
Hmm.
process engineer jobs. So yeah,
Okay.
that's how I kind of got into the refining business.
Yeah, it's a strange transition. Normally, people, like you said, they come from the chemical engineering side. So it's an amazing transition coming from the mechanical side.
Yeah, you just need to dare that and take the challenge on. And on day one, I really had to learn all about organic chemistry, and
Mm,
I didn't really know much except for what I did in high school.
yeah.
And there was also some formal training that they provided to me. It was called chemical engineering, and they covered both the chemical aspects as well as the mechanical aspects, which is
Okay.
all about like the static equipment and pumps and stuff. And I
Yeah.
knew all about that. So
Yeah,
that,
that
that
was
yeah,
all
that's
locked in. That was great.
that's kind of where it comes together. So yeah, still a mechanical engineer, but I've been experiencing a career that is as much a chemical engineer career path as well as a mechanical engineer.
Okay, very cool. And then how long have you actually held your role at Viva Energy?
Viva Energy only 2 years, so
Oh,
I
so just
moved
when
to
you
the
came here. Okay.
yeah, so I moved for the job. I was recruited into the job through LinkedIn. So for those listening, LinkedIn is a really strong tool to get yourself a job.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and before that, in all in Netherlands, all in the Netherlands, all in the refining business in one refinery in
Okay.
Rotterdam. Rotterdam's got six refineries, I think. So it's
Wow.
a small town, huge refinery
Yeah.
strip. And I went through all sorts of different roles throughout my career before I got to Australia.
Oh, lovely. Well, I mean, so that's a bit about how you've arrived here and your career history so far, which is, I've got to say, one of the more interesting career histories I've heard to date. Could you maybe give people listening at home who haven't really heard of Viva Energy Australia a bit more background into the company itself?
Yeah, well, you can read all of this on our website, which is vivaenergy.com.au.
Mm.
And I must admit, I dug a little bit up before we got into this interview, just to get the numbers right. But
Yeah.
so yeah, Viva Energy is an energy company, obviously.
Mm.
It's got a 110 years of history, but it only exists for about 6 years, so that's
Mm.
weird. No, it's not weird. Viva Energy used to be Shell,
Yeah.
and the Shell downstream business was sold to Vitol in 2014.
Mm.
So Vitol became the owner and changed its name into Viva Energy. And then in 2018, we launched an IPO, sorry.
Mm.
And so now it's a publicly owned company, which is still
Oh, wow.
predominantly Vitol is the owner, but it doesn't have the majority of shares. So
Mm.
yeah, it's a publicly owned. It's ASX listed, which is exciting as well
Yeah,
because we've got
definitely.
different shareholders to work for.
Yeah, for sure. It's an amazing history that's going on, especially for a company that's only been operating out of the Geelong refinery for the last 6 or so years. I mean, I was looking at some of the numbers, and apparently 55% approximately of Victoria's fuel requirements are produced at the Geelong refinery, and you've got a whole suite of different petrochemical products, which is tough to do out of the one site. Normally, you split them off, and they'll go to one or two different sites for different downstream processing. You've actually given us a small informational video to try and give people listening at home a better idea of what actually happens at the Geelong refinery. Do you want to maybe just introduce that one for us?
Yeah, no, it was a video recently created about the refinery. there was a driver behind that because for those who are on top of the media coverage around our refining business, the company has recently announced that we are expanding our business in Geelong, or at least look for opportunities to expand in Geelong, which is called the Geelong Energy Hub. And the video covers a bit about the business, about the refinery, but also about the exciting stuff on the Geelong Energy Hub project that we are developing.
Beautiful. It's always interesting to hear about those kind of projects. Guys listening at home, goes for about 4 or 5 minutes. Check it out here. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's got amazing updates on some of Geelong's the Geelong Refinery's new projects that are happening right now. But just in regards to how the Geelong Refinery for Viva Australia operates in regards to the other sites in Viva Energy's network, Maggie, could you maybe let everyone at home listening, or maybe just give them a bit more info about how the Geelong Refinery actually fits into Viva Australia's broader network?
Yeah, well, as I said, in 2014, Vitol acquired the downstream business from Shell in Australia. And the refinery, the one refinery we've got, sits in a network of over 20 depots and terminals, 1,250 Shell branded service stations. So there's a whole network behind it, and so the refinery is really a manufacturing site. And if you think about strategic options that a country has to take to make sure to maintain the fuel demand, to give the supply basically to the fuel demand, then the refinery is one of those strategic elements of the whole distribution system. What we do is we process the crude that is local. So that's the Cooper crude, which is I don't know if you know about it, but it's its basin is in the middle of the country. And a Gippsland crude, which is just around the corner. We process those crudes, but it's only about 30% of our crude diet. Some of that crude also is being shipped in from Singapore.
Oh wow! Okay.
Which is where the most of the market is going on there. So that's crude. So you bring in crude, and you can bring in products as well, which is what we do as a business as well. So there's lots of finished products coming into Australia from Singapore as well. Well, now if you lose that import from products from Singapore, and then at least you've got your crude imports that will imports as well as local crudes that create that product supply as well. And especially for Victoria, which is so far away relatively to Singapore, we're very strategically placed to have a refinery supplying the Victorians.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So when you say finished products, is that any kind of petroleum product, or is that maybe just like the actual final petroleum itself?
So that can be gasoline, diesel, kerosene, all those, like that's the simple range. And here in Geelong, we also have some specialty products as well, like xylene. We produce that as well, which is a specialty, which gives us a good value for money as well. So and also avgas, so that's aviation gasoline, which is quite unique. That we produce that here in Geelong as well.
Yeah, I suppose that's very beneficial for the Geelong airport down there as well. They must be best friends with you.
They used to be. Nowadays, with COVID-19, not flying that much anymore.
Maybe not lately.
But avgas there's still a need for avgas,
For sure. So, like we said before, briefly, you're the Technology and Integrity Manager at the Geelong Hub. What are your kind of day-to-day activities? What does your job actually involve?
I would say my job is about coaching people and motivating people. The coaching is all about how do you look about the business strategies. So I have to think about the business strategy and apply that to what my team should look at and what kind of prioritization they need to put in place. And that prioritization is something that I really need to focus on in terms of coaching. There's always a need to think about, like, what do we need to do, and there's always more that we can do than when we can actually make happen. So prioritization of work is really in that coaching bucket as well. And then motivating people. It's very important. You can't be a technology
the hardest job in the world.
It is the hardest stuff, but I must admit it is where I find my passion. Working with people in a technical environment. So yes, I've got my technical background, so I understand what people are talking about. But it's really that motivational aspect that is always challenging.
Yeah, definitely.
Which makes it fun in a way. I mean, challenge is sometimes difficult, but it's in general you learn a lot from that, and that makes it fun.
100%. It's the one thing that some people really thrive off is that technical challenge to really fulfill their role.
Yeah, that's right. And well, that's the thing. Like, so for some people, it might be a technical challenge. For other people, it might be the social interaction that they get at
Yeah.
work. And then somebody else has got something totally different. So, being a manager is really about listening to what motivates and what drives people, which will always be something different for everyone, and to listen and to kind of turn that into actions, opportunities for those specific individuals. And what I'm thinking about is, for instance, career development, which is something that is dear to me. I've developed my own career quite nicely. If I look back, I want to give other people those same opportunities that I got over time.
Oh, that's lovely.
And yeah, so that's important to me as well.
Nice. So I mean that's a good little like kind of background and then generalization for what like a management type role does. On a day-to-day basis, what would be a normal day for you? Are you involved directly in any parts of plant operation, or are you just kind of looking at new ways you can actually apply those business strategies?
There's a variety of things that I do.
It changes a lot.
As a manager, I'm in a lot of meetings. So meetings. Sometimes people complain that I can't get hold of me because I'm always in a meeting. In a way, I enjoy those meetings, but if there's too many, it's not to enjoy anymore. It's very different every day. Lots of meetings. But in a normal day, what would it look like? In the morning, I would have a look at what operations looked like in the previous day and night. If something happened, I need to know about it. As a refinery leadership team, we share those things and we talk about it and think about the appropriate actions. So in the unfortunate event that we would have an incident, then we need to think about what's the consequence of that incident. How do we need to respond to that incident? Obviously, there's a first response team. But once that has been established, we as a leadership team, we need to think about what's next. And especially in incident investigation is key. We need to learn from incidents and we need to prevent them from happening again.
Yeah, definitely.
So if something happens, that's something that we talk about. And it's very much the balance between thinking about the day-to-day stuff and how we can optimize that versus a long-term strategy that we have to keep an eye on as well and work on as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot involved in there, and it's always kind of changing, shifting, and evolving, which sounds like an amazingly interesting job for a day-to-day basis. But that being said, there must be some challenges involved. I mean, maybe on like a day-to-day basis or just in general, what do you find are the biggest challenges you face in your role?
I would say prioritization of work. So at a major hazard facility, obviously safety is our highest priority, and I wouldn't even talk about it as a priority. It's a value. It's something that you intrinsically are motivated to achieve. So safety is always on top of everything. So if you have something that you think can become more safe, then you have to work on it, right? But then you can spend all day or all year, years, decades working on safety improvements, but you have a business to run as well. And you need to make it profitable as well. So you need to optimize production every day. You need to think about margin improvement ideas that you want to achieve. You need to think about energy efficiency, which is really dear to me. I'm the energy sponsor for the site.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's up to me to drive people to think about energy efficiency and to not to initiate, but to support the people that initiate energy projects. Yeah,
for sure. So I mean, one of the challenges as well that would obviously maybe not face yourself personally, but the refinery in itself is some of the shifting legislation that's kind of surrounding petrol refining, especially in Australia. We've seen it in the US, we've seen it in Europe, and here in Australia. Tightening restrictions and tougher legislation governing things like sulfur content, particle content, benzene and aromatic levels. How have you, I mean, it might not have been a massive problem for Viva having only operated the refinery for 6 years, but have you guys had to make any significant changes to your refining process to kind of adjust for these changes from government?
Yeah, definitely. Over the past decades, we have been adding units, adjusting units as we go. So a lot of our units here at the refinery are desulfurization units.
Okay.
So taking the sulfur out of the crude oil to prevent that whenever they get into our products and you combust them, that they lead up to SO2 emissions.
Yeah.
So desulfurization is basically one of the key elements in a refinery.
Yeah, crucial.
Yeah, and over time, we had to build a couple of those desulfurization units. Most recent legislation change is the IMO change for fuel oil.
Okay.
So we the sulfur specs for fuel oil had to drastically come down, and well, we were fortunate enough to have one of our units that we had already installed but not using as such anymore.
Oh, lovely.
To put into that service. So now we are producing very low sulfur fuel oil through one of our older units and serving the market like that. So that's really
great when you can repurpose an old unit like that and it just happens to match what your current needs are. It's to really recycle the technology.
And you really need clever engineers to do that, right?
Yeah, for sure. You're just giving yourself the old pat on the back there. Love it.
So and another legislation that comes up is in 2027, gasoline sulfur specs will come down.
Yeah.
So here in Australia, you can't really drive those fancy cars as we've got in Europe because these cars here are being fed with gasoline that's got a high sulfur content.
Yeah.
So now that is being driven by the federal government to drive that sulfur limit down, and obviously we have to invest, and it's a huge investment. It's close to $250 million that we need to invest to make that happen. So we're currently investigating how to develop projects around that spec change.
Well, and that $250 million is just at the Geelong refinery, isn't it? It's not for the right port area. There's massive amounts of money that's involved.
It's an estimate of $1 billion that needs to be invested over the 4 refineries that the country's got. Yeah,
and it's desperately needed as well. We've had far too relaxed limits on the sulfur concentrations, especially in Australia, for a long, long time now. So it's going to be a very interesting project, and very interesting to see what happens in the next 10 years out here in Australia in regards to it. But just kind of moving on a little bit more from that, we've kind of gone through the Geelong refinery, how it's set up, what the future plans are for it, and kind of what's involved in the day-to-day operations. But maybe moving it back to your career, how did you actually hear about your first job at Viva Energy? How did you start working there?
Yeah, well, as I said, LinkedIn was the key social media that was used by some headhunters to find people that had the qualifications that they were looking for technology and integrity manager. And what my guess is, I don't know, they went international because they were looking for that special mix of people that had a people management mindset as well as a technical background in a refinery.
Okay.
Being in a country with only 4 refineries, that there's not that many people that qualify that a refinery experience. So that made it hard for people at my level. Normally, I would say we would like to breed our own managers. So if you would start at the refinery as a graduate, we would support your career all the way through to a technology and integrity manager like I am. So I would like to say like I'm the last international import that they made in this position, and then we can all breed these people ourselves.
Oh, it would be lovely, but somehow I don't think we're going to be matching the Dutch anytime soon in terms of quality petroleum engineers. What with Shell and yourself coming over for Viva Energy, it's going to be very hard for us to match that. So you've already told us a bit about how you've come here and how you kind of started at Viva Energy. Where do you think your career will take you next? Are you thinking that you're going to keep staying with the Viva Energy route, managing the graduates as they come through the program to maybe take over your role as maybe you move up somewhere higher, or are you thinking moving to somewhere completely different in a few years' time?
Yeah, I'm going to be very honest with you. When I came here, it was a real opportunity for me to, get to know the country and to be in a role like I am, like a technology and integrity manager. With my background, I was qualified, but I never stopped learning. So when I got into this role, it was really a challenge and a learning opportunity for me as well, which would be the reason for me to hold on to this job, well, at least for a couple of years longer. I am on a temporary visa, so that means that when the visa expires, I have to make a decision whether to apply for permanent residency or to go back to the Netherlands. Whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to try to be in a position which is closely related to manufacturing.
Okay.
And well, maybe not necessarily oil and gas, although I really enjoy it. And to really be in a managerial role that looks out for people, because I would love to continue to work with people and to drive their careers, because that's the satisfaction that I get out of my role.
Yeah. Would you maybe consider a role that's more process focused? I mean, having to learn chemical engineering secondhand only 2 years ago, how do you think you'd find that transition if you had to go into a role like that?
No, I didn't learn that 2 years ago. That was 15 years ago. But
okay.
Yeah, no. I'd like to be in the detail. However, I enjoy working with people more.
Okay.
So that's just a personal thing. I really appreciate when people are really keen to stay into the detail and stay into the technology. I actually push people to stay in that area because I didn't. So I need enough to balance myself out. And no, I really like to be in that people management area rather than be in the detail.
Yeah.
But not being in manufacturing or close to technology, I don't know how I would cope with that, because that's just something that is dear to me.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, and their likes and dislikes, which really influence how well you can actually apply yourself to a job and how much enjoyment you get out of it. So it's amazing that you find that enjoyment in the role that you currently have. It's rare for a lot of people. They have to go through 2 or 3 or even 4 roles before they finally find that job that really fits for them. So for anyone listening at home who's looking to get into the chemical processing, the oil and gas refining, or even the mechanical engineering side of the industry, have you got any advice for people who are just starting out?
Well, pay attention in uni. For one.
that is probably the first thing.
I think what you learn in uni is not necessarily the equations or anything that you really learn into the detail. It's more around your analytical capability. So what you need to have working at the refinery or any chemical business would be an analytical capability. Analytical skills is really important. And the other thing that I think people need to think about and will become well at is communication.
Yeah.
Because if you want to support a business, if you've got these brilliant ideas, you need to find a way to bring them across to people that might not have that background in education. They might be people just from the street that are in a maintenance role, or there may be people that learned a specific trade, which is not necessarily chemical engineering trade. We've got operations people that are very skilled in what they do, but they don't have that background as you have. So to be able to communicate with everybody here on site, you need to be a strong communicator, really. And I must admit, engineers are generally very analytical, but not necessarily the best communicators. So you need to really
I'd agree with
develop
that. So that's maybe a great explanation of, or almost some great advice for people looking to break into the industry. But I mean, one aspect that people always find the toughest is that first role or that first kind of year in industry. Have you got any advice for people who have already entered the industry but are maybe kind of finding the work a little bit tough or feeling like they're in over their head and they don't really know what they're doing?
Oh, have a little bit of faith. Don't think you will become an expert within a year. And I think specifically in chemical engineering, and well, I can only talk for the refining business. It is something that you have to learn over the years. You learn through experiences. You can't learn it in a book. You will learn it when you are exposed to certain elements. So if you're responsible for a unit and optimizing a unit and it's optimized and there's nothing happening, you won't learn as much as when a unit is doing weird stuff that you need to troubleshoot. And that's just trust that you will be able to learn, and you're in for the long run, not for a short job. So I would disadvise against people that are job hopping in this industry. I would really think about what kind of company would provide you that career. that will give you the satisfaction that you're looking for.
Definitely. There's not many better learning opportunities than being thrown in the deep end and having everything go wrong at once. It will teach you so much about a process in such a short amount of time.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've already touched on it briefly, but yeah, Viva Energy has a graduate and internship program that you guys operate. For the people listening at home, could you maybe give us an overview of what's involved in those?
Well, for one, I want to advertise it a bit because we currently have a graduate position open. So if you go to our website now, you will find one of the job offerings is a graduate role for process engineer role. So somebody in my team. What do you need? You need to be skilled, have that analytical capability. You have to have that communication skill. But we are also looking for the right behaviors, and then you could consider what's right. Well, we've got the Viva way, we've got some big behaviors that you're very driven to deliver amazing results, as we say, and to have that strong sense of doing things better together. So work as a team. And we are serving a market, so we've got lots of customers to satisfy, and those customers can be internal customers, but they can also be external customers. And so to be obsessed with what they want and what they are looking for, that drives the behaviors that we are looking for.
Okay. And in regards to this graduate program and this graduate process engineering role, what kind of responsibilities would be involved? What would you be doing on a daily basis?
Oh, you've got the responsibility on day one. You'll get the support though, but you will have a real job. You will have a job. It can be a variety of jobs. You can be responsible for a unit and have a look at that unit on its day-to-day operation and optimization. You could have a job which in a team what we call the long-term technology team, which is more long-term focus, where we have identified a process safety risk in a certain element of a unit, and then it's up to the engineer to design the solution to that. And there's always more than one solution. So you really have to think that through. We do have some design books, so you can read into those into like how do I design that out. But you need to be very clever around that. Responsibility from day one, and then the program itself. For us, it's a 2-year program, and what we try to achieve over 2 years is to provide you with as much experiences as possible. So we are likely to make you shift roles after about a year. To get into a different role, different responsibilities, different aspects of the business, and then you end up being an all-around process engineer.
That's always one of the best parts of a graduate program. I've heard it from so many different people, is when you can actually rotate around to different areas and get that different experience. It makes you a better engineer overall, and then gives you a different viewpoint on everything that you approach, which is great to hear.
Yeah, we do believe that you need to be in a position for longer than 1 year to really nail it. But as a graduate, we just want to have that exposure.
Definitely. And how can people listening at home apply for the program? Is it just for the website, or is there also like a LinkedIn advertisement?
Oh, we always advertise on LinkedIn as
always
well.
On LinkedIn?
But I think it's linking to our website. So you can always go to the website. You can like us on LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, and you will find those positions available to you. There's always a general job that you can apply for. So if you're just interested, you can do that. But if there is a vacancy, then you know that there at least is a real job available there. And the other thing, and it links into something that I think you're curious about as well. A way for us to recruit is through interns. So we also have a summer intern program. And that gives us an opportunity to look at somebody for 3 months. So it's basically a 3-month interview that you will go through.
Always fun.
It's real assignments, and it's real improvements that you're going to be making. But that internship is an opportunity for us to have a look at the students as well.
Definitely.
And then we pick the best out of those as well. So sometimes we don't really offer jobs through a graduate vacancy, like the recruitment campaign. Sometimes we just pick them out of our interns.
Yeah, it's always an amazing experience doing an internship. Not just for the company themselves. I mean, it obviously works as a trial run or a long-term internship interview process. But even just for the students to get involved and get their hands stuck into a real project, it provides an amazing learning opportunity. Which is great to hear that Viva Energy is offering that for students.
Yeah, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we are offering that this year as well.
Okay.
I just need the last bits of approval for this year. Obviously, we have been impacted by COVID-19 this year, which making it difficult in resources, both financial as well as to free up support for those people that are doing our internships. If they are doing an internship, we really want to support them the best way, and if we cannot provide that support, we shouldn't start those internships.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we're finalizing that. So if you're looking for an internship, if you're listening and looking for this internship, also have a look at our website and make sure that you keep an eye on that. As soon as we've got internships available for the summer period, so that's November, February timeframe, it will be posted on there as well.
For sure, and we might give you guys listening at home an update if we see anything from our end. Apart from that, Maggie, it's been amazing talking to you and learning all about your role at the Geelong Refinery. To everyone listening at home, hope you got a lot out of this interview. Some amazing insights into the whole industry as a whole, and finding that first job, and more importantly, the Viva Energy Australia graduate program. So again, hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.